Microsoft Solutions team. My sole job is to be your advocate today to interrupt Mike at the most inopportune moment. So my job is kind of as a moderator to answer any questions, to pose those questions to Mike. I can tell you the best webinars are the interactive webinars. And we purposely extended this webinar because we had a number of people comment that they needed extra time. So the more questions we have, the better. And we might have to take some offline, but usually we can answer them in session, and it does make for a great webinar. So I do want to challenge everyone, use your chat window to ask a question or make a comment. You can hit the raise your hand button, or you can come off mute and just start speaking. It's always fun for me to try and find that where Mike takes a breath. He has a lot of information to cover today, and do our best to make sure that we get you timely placement of your questions or comments during the session today. So we are going to be recording today. We've already started that recording. A link is going to be sent to everyone who fills out our little short survey. We have 8-question survey at the end. It'll take you less than a minute. And it really just gives us feedback on how we did and what do you want to see in the future. And I also want to put a plug in. We have a very special offer from both TechStar and Microsoft that we want to discuss at the end of this webinar. Well, we'll get to that because right now between me and the webinar today, well, between you and the webinar is me today, so I'll get out of the way. But Mike, if you want to throw up the slide about just a little bit about TechStar. We're a premier Microsoft training and professional services organization. We have a number of different services, as you see there. We do a lot of training with our clients. Those actually turn into workshops where we can work through, help them to understand it and adopt it for their environment. But we also have a professional services team that can help you implement specific projects or help you achieve specific goals. You can see there we have application development team. We have a large staffing division. We're almost 2,000 employees strong. We are worldwide, so we have quite a footprint. But I work in the Microsoft Solutions Group, and that is in direct alignment with Microsoft's goals. So we work very closely with your Microsoft representatives. So enough about us. Let me get to a little bit about Mike. So there's a young picture of Mike.
That is not the deck I was expecting to pop up, but go ahead.
He's a former Microsoft employee who ran the seminar team. So very well versed in presenting these types of webinars, and just really an expert at being a Microsoft generalist. So after he left Microsoft, he's been various teaching roles and consulting roles. He joined TechStar a few years ago as our Director of Cloud Solutions. So without further interruption, I will pass it over to Mike. So Mike, it's all you.
Thank you. I apologize.
You're
this
welcome.
is an old deck because I noticed it said 1,000 slides or 1,000 employees. We now have 2,000 employees, so we're growing incredibly fast. And I did not realize this was in here. By the way, I really didn't realize this was in here because I'm sure you're shocked comparing the old me to the new me. I always say that's what Microsoft does to you. Wonderful company, but boy, do we work hard. And obviously it put on the years and the pounds and the gray hair and everything else. I will point out that this little baby right here is my godson Joe, and he is a assistant district attorney for Travis County now. So that tells you how old that picture is. I did want to go back because one of the things that we just do, a huge group decided to come today, and I always blind carbon copy everyone when I register you and I send you updates and stuff. So you never get to see who else is attending today's events. And so we have a lot of different cities. The Microsoft government team has done a fantastic job of letting their groups know that we're out here and doing this. But I wanted to welcome everyone. State of Texas, a lot of big corporations are here. You'll notice that Microsoft's on this list. So we actually have Microsoft employees as well attending. We always appreciate them hanging out with us and checking out these webinars. I'm going to just real quickly go through this. This is going to be demo, but we're making a change today. And it's funny because the sessions have been going so well that why would you change them? But I want to go back and explain why we're making a little change. First off, Microsoft asked us to train corporate accounts and government agencies. And for the last 2 years, I've been traveling around the country on our own dime, actually, delivering 63 live events for Microsoft. So Microsoft set them up. Microsoft got the customers. Microsoft asked us to come be their trainer and presenter, and I went out and did 63 of these live events. That was all before COVID, right? At COVID, we changed over and we went to online webinars like what you're seeing here. We've been averaging about 2 per week for the last 6 months. So we've just been cranking these events. And just like today, we're getting incredible attendance. It just keeps growing and growing because we think word is starting to spread. The format for these events, I try to target because anyone can come, whether they're corporations or people just wanting to continue education or whatever. I try to make about 20% of it to be beginner, 60% to be focused on intermediate, and another 20% for really advanced topics. And when I say advanced, these are pretty advanced. Even advanced people think they're advanced. And just to let you know, on a scale of 1 to 5 on evaluating these events, we've been averaging about 76% have been giving us perfect scores of 5s. About 24% give us 4s. Usually when Microsoft does it, they say they're having a successful event, they average the 4s and 5s. And if you do that, we're at 99 point something percent. And I've only gotten a couple 3s in my entire history. And I got one the other last week, and I'm not sure why that is, but that's okay. If you didn't get as much value out of it, you get a chance to give me that kind of feedback. But the most common feedback that we got was the sessions need to be longer. So we've extended these out by 90 minutes. We had people that were requesting like 4-hour sessions, and I know your time's too valuable to give up 4 hours. So we decided to do something interesting. We created a new format. We're going to divide these into 2 parts, and it's not like a beginner and advanced. It's just simply a part 1 and kind of part 2, although part 2 is a little more heavily advanced topics. Part 1 is open to anyone who wants to. All levels, doesn't matter if you know what these products are or have ever worked with them. They're 90 minutes long. They're similar to what we provided previously. It's what you're going to have today, and it's completely free. It's TechStar's effort to help drive out the Microsoft messaging, help people understand this technology, and help you get a better grasp of how all this stuff works. As I mentioned, I was at Microsoft for 18 years, and 12 of those years I ran the seminar sales team with a guy named Pat Hayes, an amazing gentleman. And the 2 of us kind of put this very large group together that went out. And if you've ever seen a MSDN or TechNet or TS2 or any of those events that Microsoft did, those were my teams that were out there. When I left Microsoft 2008, I decided I wanted to continue to teach. I love it so much. And so what TechStar is doing is they've allowed me to go out and just help spread the word on this technology. Hopefully I'm going to do it in a way that opens your eyes to some new and intriguing, interesting ways to think about this technology. It's all custom content. We don't use anything that Microsoft provides or anyone else provides. And I'm hoping you're going to love it. Part 2, though, what we've decided to do is if you want to go even deeper, if you're interested in going further with the technology, we're going to basically invite organizations to come and do that. So rather than it just be open sourced out to everybody in the world, if you come out today and you say, I love what I heard and I want to go another level deeper, it's still free, but just contact us and we'll do an organizational specific session for you. And the reason we're doing that is it's very hard, like today, to get any feedback with 90 some odd people on the phone. People can't ask questions. People can't get very specific. So we're trying to break these down into smaller groups where we can have that interaction. You can ask specific questions about your organization and what you need. And forward. I don't, however, want to leave out all the learners and other people who just want to continue their education. So we're doing another thing, which is we're offering the entire recorded class out on Udemy. Udemy is a website that's just dedicated to learning. It's kind of like lynda.com or any of the others, but we're basically putting it out there for our cost. It's usually $9. Sometimes is $19 per training, but that's compared to a regular training session, which could be $300, $400 and above. When I trained professionally for another organization, it was $600 per student per class. So to pay $9 is nothing. I don't make any profit off of this. It's basically done to handle Udemy's cost of hosting and supporting it and driving it out, doing all that kind of stuff. And then we made a decision. We're very huge fans of U.S. veterans. We just had U.S. Veterans Day, but we've actually been doing this for a while. We want to take care of our veterans because they take care of us. If you are a veteran, just let me know and I will pay for your course myself. I will get you a copy that is totally, and that's the whole kit and caboodle. So if you'll go out to udemy.com, you're going to get this deck at the end of the show after you do your eval. And basically, you just search for my name and you'll see I've got a bunch of different courses up there. I haven't recorded the Power BI one, but it won't take me long to do because it's already created. So probably give me a week or so. And if you're interested just in the notes of the eval, just simply tell me I'd like to get your course and I will alert you the moment we get it published and online and ready to go. And again, if you're a veteran, let me know and I'll make sure you get a free copy. So this is all really to help you. It's not an intention to make money. It's not an intention to do that. We do have other sessions coming up. This is the schedule for November and December. So we still have some sessions left. Azure Governance, SharePoint and Teams is just as popular as this one. Matter of fact, they're neck and neck on which one draws more crowds. Process mining is fantastic. We'll talk about that a little bit. Going through the Microsoft security stack. Of course, you're aware of Power BI. And coming up is Power Platform, which will be on Thursday, and I'll let you know how that goes. And so we just keep repeating these and repeating these. By the third week of December, we just shut down because no one's going to come to a webinar during the holidays. So we'll pick it back up in January. So here's our agenda today. This is the part one that you're attending. We're going to talk about the basics of Power BI. I'm going to give you a full running demo. Matter of fact, 90%, 99% of this entire thing is going to be demo. So I'm going to stop doing slides here in a second. We're going to discuss DAX expressions. We're going to import data. We're going to normalize and transform the data so that we can bring it in the way we want to. We'll talk a little about calculated columns. We'll talk about conditional formats. I'll show you how to do some building of date tables.
I'm trying, Jen. I'm trying to go. I had to get into the webinar.
And then we're going to go ahead and talk about AI and ML and show you some of the differences between what Microsoft gives away for free, which is about, again, 95% of all the functionality of Power BI they give away for free. They do have a pro and a premium as well. And so that helps. We got a little background noise, so I'm going to mute that real quick. There we go. Now we don't have to worry about it. Okay, and then the question is, so if we do the part two, what's the part two? Well, remember, that's going to be custom for your organization, but we're going to talk about database development design. This is data lakes, data pools, things like that. Advanced DAX functions, especially iterative and what they call X functions. We're going to talk about time value equations, fiscal years to date, months to date, year to date. We're going to do KPIs and scorecards. We're going to normalize date and time. There's a lot of issues around trying to normalize for date and time. We'll show you how to do that. We'll do geomapping. We'll talk about R code, which is a statistical graphical code, and Python, which are two other languages besides M and DAX, which are supported. And we'll talk about real-time data updates. So if you're interested, tell us afterwards, and we'll be more than happy to set it up. Again, it's free, but we just want to focus on individual companies and talk about, or organizations, cities, governments, et cetera, and talk about your issues and your stuff. All right, last part. This is pretty much the last deck, but it's important for you to understand. Microsoft has taken the Power BI program and they put it into something called the Power Platform. Now, again, this Thursday at 1 o'clock, I'm doing a deep dive on Power Platform, and I'll show you a demo that'll blow your socks off. It's just mind-blowingly cool, is what everyone tells us. Where I'll actually build a live solution. I'll do it all without any custom code or anything. But Power BI has now been put in with Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agents. And what this is, these are the forms building and business solution processing tools that tie together all of your analytics and then allow you to build solutions, accounting solutions, purchasing solutions, new hire onboarding types of solutions. And you do it in these amazingly cool Power Platform tools. So those are the four components. And right now today, we're diving into Power BI. The other part of this is below these four in the Power Platform, they built universal data connectors. They've put in the entire AI and ML libraries. I'm going to show you some of that today, how we can tap into those. And then they've also come out with something called the Common Data Service. And the easiest way to explain Common Data Service is it is a format for your data that Microsoft has put together from all the Microsoft tools, as well as working with all the partners and competitors and everyone else out there. They've standardized the listing for Common Data Service. What does that mean? That means you may call it a postal code, I call it a zip code, and Bob calls it a mail code, but it's the same thing. The Common Data Service comes up with one set of common naming for everything. And the idea is if you write your data or pull your data into the Common Data Service and keep it in that format, you now can move that data anywhere inside the Microsoft ecosystem. So all of the Power Platform will use it, all of the analytics tools, dynamic tools, the accounting programs, CRM, everything that Microsoft has and everything that most of these other companies are doing, all now will use the Common Data Service, and you won't have to do any translations or anything else. It just makes your life super wonderful. You want more information on that, come back to our Power Platform discussion on Thursday, and I'll be glad to walk through it. But I just want you to realize that this is part of a much larger ecosystem, and it fits nicely in. And then I have down here, we also do something called process mining. And I'm just going to be frank and honest, no one is coming to our process mining webcast, and it's a shame because it is also incredible technology. The way process mining and Power BI differ from each other, Power BI does analytics on your sales, on your inventory, on the things that you have and the things you want to track and the things you want to do. What it doesn't necessarily do is tie together the operational systems that make all those sales and marketing and everything else happen. So it doesn't look at your customer calls coming in and do analysis on that. It doesn't look at where's the delay in your shipping processes, et cetera. So process mining is another tool in the Microsoft tool belt. They're working on a process mining product. TechStar has one that we use all the time, and it works in the Microsoft stack, and it can do exactly that. It can pull all your log files from all your different processes, no matter if they're inventory or sales or marketing or customer sat or whatever the case, and it uses AI and algorithms to tie it all together, and then it'll map it out and show you where you have bottlenecks, where you have waste happening, where it's taking too much time to get things processed or ordered. It's a really cool event. I'm sorry I'm putting in a shameless plug, but no one's showing up for this and they're missing out because it's a fantastic tool that kind of fits into this. Microsoft has announced officially that they will have a process mining tool probably sometime in the next year or two, but it's not ready to go yet. And so we're showing the one that we have that works with the Microsoft environment. Okay, let's keep going. So I'm going to skip all this. I told you we'd blow off all these deals. Now, you're going to want this deck because there's tons of stuff that I'm not even going to cover. I go into iterative functions. I give examples, resources, demo files. I show how certain functions will work. We don't have time to go through this. I'm going to show you a lot of it, but you're going to want this because inside of this, you'll find, for example, if you go down and look at the notes section here, right? So if I look in the notes page, there's entire code examples, there's DAX formulas, there's all kinds of stuff that you're going to want to use inside of your solutions. And so you're going to want this deck. And as Bob mentioned, it is literally just going to ask you, I think there's 8 questions, and they're all, how did we do? How was the content? You know, was it the good, et cetera. So it's not even salesy related. It'll take you about 2 minutes to do. If you do that, we'll ship you this deck. Okay, so with that being said, what is Power BI? And I'm just going to load up a presentation that I have. TechStar provides a full day training, hands-on. Microsoft actually lends us the equipment, and with COVID, they're actually lending us the virtual machines, but they're all sponsored by Microsoft. They give us everything that we need, and we can go in and take you through a class that'll speed you up in understanding how all of this stuff works. We've had a couple of customers now. We just got done with one of the bus companies down in San Antonio. They may even be attending today because they come a lot to our sessions. Anyway, and you can go down and we'll walk you through kind of how you use analytics to figure stuff out. So I'm showing you a dashboard that we actually create in the class itself. But this is classic Power BI. Now, in a minute, I'm going to show you how I pulled the data in. We'll build everything from scratch. but I wanted you to see how it's completed right now. You'll notice that we can put in beautiful graphics. I can put in gauges and bars. I can color coordinate some of the icons here to show me if I'm on track or not. Everything breaks down into sales. I have the same conditional tables that I would have in Excel. So I could see, like, for example, something interesting is happening here. This is much brighter than it should be compared to the others. So in particular, Los Angeles in 2016 is really starting to sell. This retail store is really doing well. I can click on other tabs and see them broken down by geo mapping. I can see them broken down by products. This is a tree map, shows you the size of the squares. We'll show you exactly the data that's included in it. We'll get into this section in just a little bit. This is the hook to the artificial intelligence. That's where that is. And then you just keep going. But what's great about this is everything that you see built on these pages is interlinked together. So what does that mean? Well, that means as I click out here, jump out to like page 5, you'll notice I've thrown out this slicer here. That's what this is called. And I could just click on any one of these things, Charlotte or Las Vegas, and anything I do to one object, it does to the other object. This is showing me daily sales for these particular places. And if I wanted to, I could change the graph and make it look better, nicer. Here's the same kind of thing up here, same kind of graph. What if I only wanted to look at my Northwest sales? And you'll notice when I do this, I can set it up to make changes. Now, these changes can be adjusted so that the interactions in between the data, when I go in and tell it I want to, I can edit these interactions, and I can tell it that I want this object to affect this or not affect it by turning these on and off. So let me show you what that means. You'll notice that this one down here is tied to this one. So if I say, show me the Southwest region, my data changes, my graph changes, etc. But I have turned off the interaction between this link and this chart, so it doesn't matter what I click, it's always going to show the same data. So it allows you to build these interactions where I can pull down and say, I just want to see New York. And it just shows me New York. Now, this one, I've allowed it to change both, but this one only changes one or the other. So you have this full capability of deciding at what level of detail you want to see or want to show, and everything is customizable. So I just click and I can resize. Maybe I want a little more space on the top here for this one. I'm going to grab this chart and move it down here. And I can build out these dashboards and make them entirely effective so that I can publish this and anyone in the world can go up and take a look at it. So here's a great example. I want to look at Phoenix, Arizona. I want to see girls' shoes, and I'm holding down the control key, and women's shoes. So I'm doing both in a dress shoe using a slingback deal with a 3-inch heel. Okay. And so I built a dashboard here that any person using this can just pick and choose exactly what they're looking at, and the data will keep adjusting and accommodating based on all these filters that I've set. If I decide that I want to take a filter off, I just click it again and it turns all the other ones on. So now I'm looking at all 16 stores. What if I just want to look at the Northwest region and compare how these worked? So once I have this in place, I now can go up and publish this. And by doing this, it's going to take this and it's actually going to save this up into the cloud. Now, it gives me a number of different spots that I can put this in. And when you work with TechStar on any project, the very first thing we do is we build you a Microsoft Teams site, and we build a publication spot on there where we can publish out a dashboard. So if you're working with TechStar, we use Power BI to keep track of, are we on budget? Are we on time? Are we doing everything that we promised we were going to do? We want 100% visibility into the work we do. So I've got a bunch of other customers that we've built a bunch of portals out here. But for right now, I'm just going to put this up to my workspace. My workspace is where you can go ahead and publish work that you're currently in process. You're not ready to share it out to the world, but you still want to be able to access it and get it and do all kinds of neat stuff. So what's happening is it's publishing it out to the cloud. Now, not only is it publishing my dashboard and the changes I just made to it, but it's also publishing the data cube. And we'll talk about data cubes here in a second. Once it's done, it's going to say, let's go ahead and look out at the dashboard. And you'll notice I'm now in my browser. And Microsoft Power BI has published this out to the point with full interaction, just like you saw. So I could now give this to my boss or give this to my executives, and they can say, well, I don't care about dress shoes, and I'm not sure I care about the gender. And you can turn these on and turn these off however you want to. And I can drill and say, show me outdoor boots in a rain shoe. And as I do this, again, the data is adjusting and sliding, and it's giving me back all my data and all my interests. And everything I had before, all those pages, they're all here, just like you saw them a second ago. And they're completely accessible via the cloud. So this is what it's about. And Microsoft uses this concept called low code or no code, meaning that with very little effort, you can build out these incredible dashboards. Now, you can use super DAX expressions and M code and R code and all that stuff if you want to, but you don't have to. And a matter of fact, the dashboard you're seeing here, literally, I don't think has any code associated with it at all. I did this all just by dragging and dropping. And I'm going to show you here in a second. We're going to start from scratch how we do that. I'm going to pause real quick to see if there's any questions. Remember, you can use the chat window inside of Microsoft Teams. You can tee up your question, and Bob will be sure to inject and make sure that I'm answering them. But I want to, if you have any questions, please let me know if I'm going too fast or whatever. There's just a lot of information we're trying to convey. All right, I'm going to keep going.
You're doing okay.
Okay,
Good.
Let's try this from scratch now to show you how it all works. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to minimize this, and I'm going to open up a brand new copy of Power BI Desktop. I'm going to go from scratch. I'm not going to have one pre-built. You see, I use this all day long, so I have, probably 30 of these dashboards already built out. But when it comes up, one of the things that you're going to notice is it's got lots of regular updates. So when you get out here, you're going to see actually there's an update available right now, and this just came out the other day. These updates happen pretty frequently. And I played this game before, and just to make sure you're all not sleeping on me, I want you to use your chat window on this. I want you to guess, let's take a typical Microsoft product, Excel, Word, PowerPoint. How many developers right now do you think are currently working on a copy of Excel? Just give me a number. Just say, I think it's, X. How many developers typically work on any one of those products, Excel or Word or PowerPoint? Just Jose says 6. So far, he's the only one that's got an answer. There we go. DJ 248. Amanda says 100. So I'll let you know right off the top. I thought it was a huge amount. And you'd be surprised, Deirdre is actually almost dead on. It's anywhere from 8 to 12 developers is all you have working on Excel or Word or PowerPoint. The interesting stat from Microsoft is on Power BI in 2018. So this was 2 years ago. They had over 278 developers working on that project. I always tell customers, if you want to know where the technology is going, if you want to know where to invest in your company, look at the number of people working on the project. And so for Microsoft, they have invested super heavily in this. They've got a huge development team. They're doing just incredible work. And you guys know, even with Microsoft on the call, if those of you that have been to a lot of my sessions, you know this, I call it like I see it. And when Microsoft screws up, I will call them out and say, this is horrible and this is not good and they shouldn't have done this, etc. But when they knock it out of the park, I will also call it out and tell you. I am free, after working there for almost 2 decades, I'm free to say whatever I want to say. I will let you know Power BI blows my mind. It is such a cool product. The more you get into it, the more amazing it is. This is one where they've knocked it out of the park. And I know there's others out there and there's competitors and knockoffs and people trying to do similar stuff, but nothing matches to the Microsoft ecosystem. So that's a good and a bad, by the way. 278 developers. I'm sure it's probably over 300 plus now. The good news is you're getting amazingly cool functionality. The bad news is these updates sometimes can break previously working things because Microsoft's changing stuff around. Not so much now, but just a year ago when you did an update, it was often your dashboard would just suddenly stop working. I advise my customers, once you get a working version, stick with it for 6 months. You don't have to update every single time Microsoft comes out with an update because you're going to find these updates come out about every 2 weeks. So I tell them skip a few, go a few months, and if you have a problem, certainly you want to update. But if everything's working fine, keep that cranking for a while. And once about every 6 months, I go out there and I go ahead and update to the latest version, unless there's a bug or some known issue. And you say, how will I know? It's all in here. The forums are here, quick start videos that'll teach you everything you need to know. There's a ton of these things. If I click on all videos, you'll just see loads and loads and loads. These are all the different categories. These are all free. They're great resources as ways to learn the product. So that's all in here. They even give downloadable samples, so databases that you could start with and start playing with, because you don't want to learn on your corporate data. You want to learn and using a sample database that you can mess around with and play with. So let's show you how this works. This is the screen that comes up. You'll notice the very first thing it suggests is get data. And if I just happen to click off this screen, the first tool that it offers is get data. Obviously, that's hugely important. So I'm going to click on the get data button. Now, what Microsoft did is Power BI came from Microsoft Excel. Power BI in its first iteration actually started what we would call development back in 2007. It didn't actually hit the Excel market until 2010, 2013, when it came out as add-ins to Excel. Some of you may know Excel had a thing called Power Query. Then they added Power Maps and everything Power, right? It was all over the place. And those add-ins kept making Excel bigger and bigger, and they were really cool, but they got so big, it was starting to get hard to manage it in the Excel environment. So Microsoft decided to branch it off into its own product called Power BI. And in 2016, they released the very first version of the Power BI app, what you're seeing here. When I go up to get data, you'll see, remember that chart that I had before. Matter of fact, I think I still got it right here. I do not have it right here. Let's see. Where did I put it? I did have it right here. Okay. And let me get out of this mode, go back here. Remember this, the data connectors that I mentioned. This is a library that hooks into all of these different things. If I go back here, that's what you're seeing here. I've got everything. JSON queries, XML data, Oracle, IBM, DB2, on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And I'm just in the D's right now. I mean, we're just getting started. There's a ton of this information. And I will tell you, in working with our customer staff, there has not been a single customer data set in the last 2.5 years that I can remember that we could not get hooked into Power BI easily. You can even hook into things like Facebook or Google Analytics or Salesforce.com or anything else that you're using. Almost all of these products now have hooks created for Power BI. There is even the ability to pull right from databases. So I could actually go out to an HTML page and I could pull information right off an HTML page. Well, why would you want to use that? I'll give you a real life example. I had a customer that was a construction company, and one of their projects was becoming really delayed, and the city that was working with them was getting super upset because they were supposed to be pouring streets and concretes and everything else. And the construction company was like, look, the weather has been horrible. You cannot pour concrete in rain. And they were trying to explain that the weather was causing it. It wasn't because of anything the contractor was doing. So they were able to go out to weather.com, pull up a table for their zip code, their address, and literally scrape off all the weather reports for that particular area, loading it right into Power BI and laying it over the top of their work assignments to show that it did have a phenomenal amount of rain days that rained out their ability to pour concrete. So that's a great example of how this works. Now, I could use any one of these. I can go out to Azure and pull all the Azure cloud enablement. I got SQL Server. I got my Power Platform is all in here. I'm going to just go and I'm going to use an Excel file just for the simplicity of today's demo. But I also have the exact same demo in an Access file, and I actually have the same demo running on a SQL Server. But just to make life a little easier for us right here, I'm just going to go out to my desktop, and I'm going to use this file called MasterDB. Now I'm going to open this up. And when I do open this up, what you would see in the MasterDB file is, let's go load it up so you can see it here. So Excel is a flat file database, right? And what that means is it's just basically a giant table. So let me go up into my desktop. I should have something out here called MasterDB. There it is. This is the Excel file that I'm about to import. When Microsoft first started doing Power BI, the original demo files that they were asking partners like TechStar to use, they had only like 78 records. And so a couple of years ago, I said that's not acceptable. Customers don't have those small databases. So I wrote my own database, and this particular database has almost 1 million records. It's 858,546 records. So it's really good size. And you'll see that I have a colors table, a stores table, a reps table, and a relational table. And I built this like a relational database, except that this is a flat file database. Well, what does that mean? If I go back up to the top, you'll see that when I want to publish, in this case, it's a shoe store. When they sell a shoe, I want to mark what color the shoe is. Now, I actually sold shoes to put myself through college. So I worked at a lady shoe store, and I know about Bandolinos and Nine Wests and all those wonderful shoes. And anyway, I know that those manufacturers always come up with their own colors, right? So they could call it tan, they could call it bone, they could call it taupe, they could call it, you know, any number. It's like the Crayola crayons of different colors. So rather than try to put all that in here, I created a color table that says, look, I have this thing called tan, and you'll notice that tan can come in both from the color family of tan, but the actual brand calls it tan, or also calls it taupe, or also calls it khaki, or also calls it neutral. Those are all names for tan. Sometimes I want the manufacturer's name, and sometimes I just want the color family. I just want all tan shoes to see what is the most popular color I'm selling. So this is an example where I build a lookup table with these values in it, and then each I give a unique ID, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on down, sequential. Then when I go to make the sale in the relational database, I say the color ID for this sale is 13. And when I look back in the colors, I look up number 13. And indeed, this is a tan shoe. And it's called tan, and the color family is tan, so that I can look up other tan colors and the like. So this is a relational database. It's relating these two tables together. Now, Excel doesn't normally do that. But SQL Server and Oracle and DB2 and all those guys, MySQL, they are all relational databases. So what I'm doing when I load this is you're actually seeing two sets of these: stores, colors, reps, etc. What's happening is these are the tabs: colors, relational, reps, and stores. And you're noticing it's giving me a preview here. And these are what are called named ranges. And named ranges are just values in Excel. Anytime you have a table identified, it is a named range, which you'll see listed here: tables, reps, colors, and table 4. And so it's giving me both options. It's the same data. So I'll just pick the tabs for this particular case. Now you'll notice I'm getting a preview, so I get to see this is real live data coming in. And I also have the ability to just load the data directly or transform the data. Let's talk about a couple things first. When I load the data, what Microsoft is doing is they're in essence building a data cube, okay? And this is important because what you don't want to do is have direct access to your corporate data. Why? Because I'm going to goof around with it. I'm going to change the names. I'm going to apply new filters. I'm going to do all kinds of stuff. And if I change the corporate data, anyone else using that data is going to have that data change. It's going to mess up everything. So what Microsoft does is they build a data cube that allows you to go in and transform the data in any way that you want to, and the original data stays where it is, and the data cube will accept the new parameters that you're applying without changing the original source data. Let me show you what I mean. So if I said load, it would load a data cube and I'd be ready to go. But I'm going to go transform this data as I load it. There's 1 million records. It's going to take a second. So this comes up in something called Power Query Editor. Now, this is the same Power Query that you run inside of Excel, because remember, these used to be add-ons to Excel. and it's saying, hey, your preview hadn't been updated in the last 62 days, so let's refresh it, make sure we got the latest data. And here are those pieces of data: colors, relational, reps, stores. Okay, I said I want it to be a relational database, but it's not really. It's a flat file. Wow, excuse me. So I'm going to actually right-click on this, and I'm going to rename this. And I'm just going to call this the sales database. It makes it a lot easier. These are all my sales in here. And then when I click on the sales database, notice I can scroll through here, and I might want to change around some of the order. I want to see gender before size, so I'm just going to pick it up and drag and drop it. I might want to change the, I think I have rep ID, and it should be like sales rep ID. Yeah, here's sales ID. I'm going to change this and rename it to rep ID. Now, again, I don't want it to do this back on the original source data. So it's only doing this to the data cube that I'm creating. Now, here's what's wonderful, and you may not realize what's happening. Some of you noticed over on the applied steps that everything I do is being marked down here in order of the applied steps. And what does that mean? It means that, like a macro recorder, any change I make to the data cube gets recorded and the steps get applied to that data cube. Now, this is important for a couple of reasons. A, I've got a record of exactly how I've changed this, but I can actually save these applied steps and then reapply them at a later time. Well, why would I want to do that? One of the things you noticed when Bob was talking about my career at Microsoft, I was a data analyst for Microsoft for about 12 years. I did a lot of reports, and I actually delivered those reports directly to the Microsoft senior executives, so Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer and all those guys. And you got to be prepared if you're going to step in front of them. They're a tough group, but wonderful people. But anyway, it would often take me 2 weeks just to prep my data to get it ready. This is the sales of all the US subsidiaries of Microsoft. A lot of products, a lot of data, trying to get all this stuff. So it was a 2-week prep time, and I'd take the next 2 weeks and build up my dashboards and my scorecards and stuff, and then it's all for naught, and we had to start over and redo it all again. Another 2 weeks of prepping, another 2 weeks of building, and that would go on and on and on. What Microsoft realizes, if you're building this temporary data cube and you can record these steps, imagine I do this for the month of November, and it takes me a full day to get everything in place, and I rename this, and I order this, and I get it all exactly the way I want to. If I can save these steps, when my data gets refreshed now for December, the new December data comes out, I don't have to do all that again. I just simply go back and reapply those steps. In a matter of seconds, what took me a day to do now just gets played out instantly, and my data gets transformed to exactly the way I want it. I seriously almost cried when that feature came out and realized how much time that saves, how much effort. It just makes it 1,000 times easier. Every now and then you might have to tweak 1 or 2 things, but you're talking about a 2-week period of time versus maybe 30 minutes just to put any final tweaks on your data that you want. So refreshing the data becomes instantaneous. And once I get it where I like it, and there's so much more, I don't have time, but I can add columns, I can change columns, I can put in notations. There's just a whole lot we can do here. We'd spend all day doing it. But I'm going to go back and I'm just going to apply this. And now I'm going to actually build my data cube. So it's pulling the data from the database. This could be SQL Server or Oracle or whatever. It's transforming it into the cube, and it's applying all those steps you saw me apply. And I'm actually seeing the data coming in live with all the counts and numbers and telling me how much data is being pulled over. Again, with 1 million records, this will take about 20 seconds to do. Now, when it comes over, you're going to see a big white screen, just like this right now. Hey, it says build visuals with your data. Originally, this didn't even show up. This is a brand new feature they added because people would stare at a blank screen and they were like, did my data load or did my data not load? Well, a couple of key things to look at. Over to the right here, you'll see these fields. These are the tables that I just pulled in. So colors, reps, sales, and stores. And if I click on any one of these, you'll see all of my column headings are dropping down here. You remember I renamed this. It used to be relational, but I transformed this into sales. So now it's in my Power BI as sales. And there's every one of those columns that we just saw. So this is one way to know that the data came over. The other way to know is over here, I have my reports. That's the blank page I'm looking at here. The next one down is the data sets themselves. And I can go over and I can click on any one of these, including the sales. And this is live data, and it's all 858,000 rows. So this isn't a preview like Excel does. This is the real data itself. I'm seeing it live. I'm looking at it, and I know that it's in my model. And then the last thing down here is the data model itself. And this is where we build relational databases. Now, let me tell you something. In relational databases, if you connect to a relational databases, these relations work great. If you, like in Microsoft Excel, like I did, try to take a flat file database and turn it into a relational database, Power BI will give it a try, but it doesn't always get it right. So it guesses based on what you've called things, but it doesn't always know exactly how to synchronize these things together. So I always teach my classes, the very first thing that you want to do is you want to go in here and look or manage these relationships. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look, and it's telling me the colors ID table is currently related to the sales table ID. Okay, that's not right. This should be colors to colors and reps to reps and all this stuff. So I can go in and edit these. And this is what I'm saying is it will often get these wrong just once. You only have once, but you want to go back and double check these. It's so easy to do because when I hit edit, it just simply comes up and says, okay, here's the color table. What column do you want out of this? I want the IDs. And what column out of the sales table should this relate to? Notice it's trying to do ID to ID, and that's the wrong way to do it. What I want is ID and colors should relate to the color ID and sales. So just by clicking on the column, I'm building these relationships. That looks good. Let's go to the next one, reps to sales. I'm going to say edit. And it says, okay, here's your sales rep ID. And it's, again, trying to go to the same ID column over here. I don't want that. I want to go out to where my rep ID is. So rep ID to reps ID. So that's now good. And we'll do one more here, edit it. And this says sales ID to the stores. Well, I want the store ID to be related to the store ID. So it actually got this one correct. So it's pulling from the sales table store ID and it's going to the stores table store ID. And that's all good. Once that's done and I save this, I'm good from this point forward. I don't have to do anything else. Again, it's asking me if I want to upgrade and learn more about what's changed from the last version. I'm going to ignore that for just a second. But this is all set. My data is done. It's changed. It's morphed. I've got my data cube here away from my centralized data, so I'm not going to make any changes to that. And now I can go play with it all day long. Well, what does that mean? We're going to start by simply telling it what kind of visualization we want to look at to get going. And we'll do something simple. I'm just going to do a table or a matrix. The difference between a table and a matrix is kind of one-dimensional. Matrix is multi-dimensional. So I'm going to click on a matrix here. And it's basically simply going to ask me, notice that it's come over under my visualization. It says, what's your rows, what's your columns, what's your values? And just like in a pivot table in Excel, I would say, let's take the actual price as the values that we see. And I want the rows to be the stores. Now, notice that I don't have stores here. I have a store ID, but because I related this store ID to the store ID down in this section, down in the stores table, there's store ID is married to this store ID. These two tables are joined together, so now I can take the name current store and put it in my rows. And there's all my current stores, and there's the actual sales prices that I sold. And I'm going to add some columns in. The column is the sales date. So I'll put sales date in, and there you go. Let me pull this out, and it, just like in Excel, I have a pivot table pretty much right there in the middle of my database, okay? Now, I mentioned to you earlier that everything that you put on a page, notice that we're on page 1 right now, everything that you drop on here will interconnect. So let's put in something right here. It's called a slicer, and you'll do this all the time. You'll throw slicers all over the place. I put in a slicer, and it's asking for one single field that I want to cut this data by. So I'm going to say, let's cut this data by gender. I'm going to grab gender and drag it and drop it into the field. And you'll notice that it automatically knows boys, girls, men's, or women's shoes. Which do you want to look at? I'll resize this. I'll move it up to the corner here. And this is automatically triggered. So if I say boys' shoes, all the data changes. Girls' shoes, all the data changes. Men, and again, men, and hold down the control key and hit boys at the same time. And now I have men and boys. And I can keep dropping as many filters as I want to on here. I can even drop in other objects. Notice I'm clicking in the blank space first to tell it that I want to, whoops, sorry, I double clicked. Click in the blank space just to tell it that you want to put in another object. Let's throw in a donut chart. It says, what do you want in the donut chart? So I want to look by legend at my actual sales values. Okay, so men's and boys' shoes, and notice it's giving me a percentage. Boys makes up 35.36 and men make up 64.64 at about $14.72 million. And then if I click and I say, I just want, how about girls and women, or how about all of them? So this will keep dynamically updating. So every single object on this page controls every other object on this page. Now in the advanced class, I'll teach you how to break that apart and make it so you can really get some customizations. But for today, just realize that's what we're doing. We're trying to connect these things together. Okay, so very, very powerful. Any object that you have here, by the way, you could totally customize. So this first field is for the data. This is where I drag and drop in the various features and qualities. The second one, the little paintbrush here or roller brush, that's where I can go format. So if I wanted to, I could go format this particular table. And I'm going to go down and use, just like Excel does, I'm going to use conditional formatting. And I might want to turn on some background colors. And you'll see right now I've got it in shades of blue. But if I go in here under the advanced controls, I can tell it exactly what kind of color scheme I want. So I'm going to say my lowest values should be my reds, my middles are yellows, my highest values will be my green. And I don't have green in this color scheme, so let's go add green. And I'll simply say okay, and boom, there is your chart right there showing you exactly.
And we have a question on that too, Mike.
Yeah, please.
Can you create bins in Power BI? Let's say total sales for 10 to 12, 13 to 15, and so on?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, that's where we're about to go next. So that's a great question. We're going to use DAX as a way. Anytime you have data that you need, but that's not part of your core data set, we use DAX expressions to fill that in. It's very similar if you're used to Excel. You know, I can create a new column in Excel that contains some formula. Well, we can do that in Power BI through the use of DAX expressions. And so you can create bins inside of DAX and then use DAX as one of your parameters that you want to draw your charts and graphs and tables by. That's a perfect example of how this works. By the way, I didn't show this, but you can also go in and I can sort these like top to bottom or bottom to top. So you can totally customize the look. I can change the font, the background, the color, the style. I can even just click here, and instead of seeing this in data form, I want to see this in chart form, and it'll instantly apply it into a particular chart. So I go back in here and I say, okay, I've got my data. Let's put the stores back in. I want current stores as part of the legend, and there you go. There's all the different stores moving up, moving down. You got it. Now, you bring up a really good point about DAX expressions. What if I want to put in buckets? Or in this particular case, this is a great example. I would have this problem when I presented to the Microsoft execs all the time. You kind of shrink this down so they're not overlapping. You see how easy that is to do, and I can resort and resize this. There we go. So we'll make that look good. But you can see right here, it's really hard to see all of these numbers. I can hover over any one of them. It'll bring up the actual dollar amounts. But boy, I can't tell if the purples overlap in the orange or the gold, or it's just too tight in there for me to see clearly what I need to see. Well, what we can do is we can create a DAX expression that will actually go provide new data functionality that we don't have. Well, what do I mean by that? I'm going to go back to my other data set here so I can show you this. I've already got this made. Actually, I'll just do it right here. Anytime you see the little calculator, so I've gone back to my existing demo. It's the same data. It's exactly the same. It's just already prepped. So you don't have to watch me try to type this out. Anytime you see the little calculator, this is an expression that I have created. So I created an expression called rank. And if I wanted to, I could call this Mike's rank or Mike is rank or anything else that I want. It doesn't matter. Anything on this side of the equal sign is giving it a name, and anything on the right side of the equal sign is the DAX expression. And for those of you that have done Excel formulas, it looks just like the Excel formulas. There's very little difference, and if you've done Excel formulas, you'll pick it up super, super fast. This is simply saying take every single value and rank it, all the stores by the current stores, and calculate out the sum of the sales in ascending order. So instead of giving me the dollar amount, 17 million, it's going to go and give me the rank position. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy that text, and let's go back to the one we created. We're back to our one that we just made. And you'll notice I don't have a rank expression in here, so it's time to make one. I'm going to go under my sales, and I can add in a new measure right from inside here. When I do this, it'll pop up that formula bar. And again, I'm just going to paste it so you don't have to see me type. And I can say Mike is rank if that's what I want to call this thing. I hit enter, and watch what happens. You're going to see a new measure called Mike is rank. And this is the stack ranking of these values. It's not going to give me the value, but it'll give me the stack rank in ascending order. Watch what happens now when I click this object. Remember, this didn't exist a second ago. I just told it to create this, and it's creating this on the fly, meaning that the moment I execute this, it's running the calculations and it's giving me that updated data. So instead of doing the actual price like you see here, I'm going to get rid of actual price. And now I'm going to take that Mike is rank formula and drop it right into values. And you'll see now it's ranking 16 as my top store and 1 is my worst store. It's the exact same data that you just saw, but it's spaced it out because it's doing it by rank rather than actual dollar amounts. So it's really easy to see, like this gold one is going up through the roof. It's doing fantastic. This purple one, not so much. It's on a huge downward decline. And this guy right down here went from worst. It was in last place, and it jumped up 4 notches in 2016. So this helps me find these outliers and say, what happened? Why are they doing so much better than they were before? They jumped 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spots just in the last year. Let's go figure out what they're doing right and try to understand it. And you'll notice that these aren't in relative comparison. It's just if this one beat this one by a penny, it gets the higher rank. Or this could be a jump of 20, 30, 40 million dollars, right? The rank doesn't care. It just says this is number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Let me show you that again by going back because it's so simple to do. I click on the object, I get rid of the Mike is rank, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to put the actual sales price. And now you'll see there's a huge gap between our number 1 store and our number 2 store, right? But in the rank deal, it just says they're ordinally separated on equal value. So it doesn't care if it's a small gap like this or a huge gap. It's just stack ranking them one after another. It's just a different way to look at the data, but it's a way to look at it when I didn't have that in my original source data. DAX expressions allow me to create these dynamic formulas that'll give it to me. DAX is really good at doing incredible calculations, especially around dates and times, fiscal years to dates, calendars to dates, that kind of stuff. Same time over previous year. That would be a great example. One other thing I want to show you too is we go in here, and I'm going to put out another filter real quick just to make our data a little more readable. I'm going to throw out the region that these are in. By the way, I could drop it in here, or I could actually just drop it in the chart if I wanted to. And let's just take like these 4. Let me find something. Here's a good spread. Okay, so I'm going to do the Southeast region just so I can look at this. And what I want to show you is when you click on the chart, notice that I told it sales date. And if you look at the data for sales date, so if I go in here and look at sales date, it's the date and times, and the times are all set to midnight, just the way I put the data in. But it's put all this in, but there is no month, there is no year, there is no anything about this data. It's just a single date. But Power BI is smart enough to realize that it can break it down by years, quarters, months, and days because it understands a date field has years, quarters, months, and days. Okay, so Power BI is doing this for me. It's not doing things like the number of the week in the year. It's not doing day of the week. It's not doing, there's all kinds of other calculations I might want to go deeper on that I can't quite do yet because I don't have that specific data set in there. I just have a single date that all these transactions were on. Well, when you click on a graph, you'll notice these little hieroglyphic symbols down here. And I want to show you how these work. These allow you to drill up and down through this hierarchy. Okay, so right now we're looking, if I go up to the very top, I'm going to go back down because I've got this set wrong. Oh, because I got current stores listed here. There we go. Okay, so now I've got it by year. So you'll notice when I go to the bar, this is 2010. If I move to the right, the next snap is 2011, 2012, 2013, 14, 15, 16. If I drill down using this little button, and I'm going to use the double arrow to drill down in the hierarchy, it's going to go down from year to quarter, quarter to month, month to day. What's interesting, though, is it's without regard to the previous hierarchy. So year to quarter, it's now giving me quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, quarter four, but this is for all the years. So this is all the Q1s for 7 years, mapped with all the Q2s, mapped with all the Q3s. So I'm getting seasonality here. I know that Q2 is actually my worst quarter for Louisville. Sales go down rather significantly. And I can click on other regions. I can see other times to see quarters really don't make as much sense. What if I go down one more and I look at the month? This is the month for these. And what do I notice? February is a horrible month for selling shoes. And again, without regard to the year, all the years are listed here all together. All the Februaries make up this data. Why would February be a lousy month for selling shoes? Think like a shoe store owner. Why would February be bad?
And we do have a question too. Right
okay.
The question is, it doesn't get confused by doing day, or the day, month, year versus month, day, year?
It actually doesn't, because in the data, it's defined as a date time, and then the format is put over the top of that. And you can switch it if you want day, month, month, year, year, or month, day, year, year, or month, day, year, year. However you want to do it, just like in Excel, it'll put that format over the top of it, but it knows that a date is a date, and it knows that a date can be broken down into quarters, months, years, etc. The reason that February is so bad, by the way, there's only 28 selling days, right? In February, not selling shoes, selling boots due to winter. That's actually, Denise has got it right. I'm giving you a million imaginary points, Denise, because you're right. A, there's only 28 days. B, it sucks in the weather. No one wants to go out in the snow and buy a bunch of shoes. C, everyone bought holiday shoes and then returned them back in February. That's actually true. And they say, oh, these don't fit well and I want my money back, even though they've got cocktail stains and other stuff on it because they wore it to all the parties. And the last thing is they're moving out inventory to get ready for March, Easter, and the holidays. So it's actually a horrible time, and the data clearly reflects it. So this is seasonality. But let me jump back up because I want to show you a more important button. Remember, this is snapping years now because it's at the top of the hierarchy. If I use this arrow, the little forked arrow, it keeps the previous hierarchy but adds the next. So watch what happens when I click here. Now I've got 2010 Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and then Q1 for 2011. So you see how I'm adding more data into my line where I'm getting a whole lot more interesting stuff. What if I go again? Now I'm going to add months to quarters and years. And now my data gets a whole lot more interesting, right? And I go January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So all the data points are in there, and I can see them each independently. And if I want to, I can just click on any particular part of this. I can tell it which region I want. I can put them all up there. It just doesn't make a difference. You get this whole big spaghetti thing. But we can drill down to and back up at any time inside of this just by using these different icons. and it'll give you some really cool seasonality and functionality. All right, I want to get to a few more advanced features. We showed you DAX. I can also create custom columns. I'm not going to have time to go into that, but where DAX, if you remember what DAX is, I'm sorry, I'm saying DAX. This is a DAX expression, and so let's just change this to rank or sales rank instead of Micah's rank. And by the way, I can do this just really easy if I could spell. So there's sales rank, and the second I do it, it changes it to sales rank, and you'll notice that it still changes and keeps all the data, so everything gets updated the second I do that. So you have the ability to do that. Well, that DAX expression is calculated instantaneously. It's built to automatically put that in there. But you could actually go in and I could create an expression inside my sales deal where I create an entirely new column of data. When I say new column, it's going to take me out to my model and it's going to ask me what columns do you want to add together. So I could, for example, start typing and say, give me my actual price. And you'll notice that it's saying, you mean from the sales table column called actual price. So it's auto-filling that. And I'm going to subtract out my costs, right? Which is my sales table costs. So I'm actually putting in this, we'll call this profit or gross profit or whatever else you want, profit. Just make it simple. So I'm actually taking two other tables in here. I hit enter, and what it's doing is not only is it calculating my profit, but notice the icon is different. It's actually added this column in. What does that mean? If I go look, I'm going to see now there's a column called profit, and it's already done the math for every single row in this database for all 8 million records. So again, if I grab this and slide down, we'll see this change 66.8, 67.6, 57.2. So it has gone through line by line and it's calculated a new column for each one of these transactions. This is important because a measure doesn't do that. A measure happens at runtime. A calculated column happens at the moment you create the calculated column, and then it adds this data to your data table. My size of my database just got bigger, right? My data, actual data inside it just got bigger. It's now saving a larger file on the disk than it was before. But the benefit of doing this is it's already pre-calculated, so it doesn't take time when you get into these really big, monstrous transactions. If you can build it as a column and add it in, then it can do the math even faster and quicker later on when you're building really hairy formulas. When I do it as a measure, it's doing it at the time. You'll notice that there really is no measure up here called rank, right? I don't see a column called rank. That's because rank is being calculated at the time that it's being utilized inside the system. So when I grab this and I take sales rank and I put it in under actual price, it instantly calculated and instantly popped that up for 1 million records. Hopefully that makes sense for everybody. All right, but we need to go deeper than this. So great, I've got months and years and quarters and days, but I want to go a whole lot deeper. I want to know, using the ISO model, I want to know, you know, what do you do if your fiscal year, like Microsoft's fiscal year starts July 1st? Well, that just messed up everything. Q1 is not really Q1, it's Q3. And what do I do if I, you know, have all these weird issues? And so that's where we're going to use the next part of this. We're going to do something called mQuery. And mQuery is a language. The best way to think about this, so Power BI supports Python. It supports DAX expressions, it supports mQuery, and it supports rQuery. And we're not going to get into R today, but R allows you to take graphics like this chart and totally customize it and make some incredible professional looking, super amazing visualizations. That's what R does. So let's look at mQuery real quick. mQuery is the language that's best used when you're doing mass changes to your database. You're structurally moving things around. You're creating new joins. You're, you know, in mass, totally manipulating and changing out the database itself. And I'm going to go back here and show you. I'm going to steal some of this code that I'm going to give you. So let me open this up. I'm going to go down to my date table here. And whoops, excuse me, date table, there we go. And once again, I'll go into my notes pages, and I'm just going to steal this by copying this. Again, you don't want to see me type this all out. This is a huge set of code. This is free. I'm giving it to you for free. I didn't write this. I've got the credit for the author that actually wrote it in here. But I want you to show you what mQuery does. The way you do mQuery, if I go back here, I now want to do some structural manipulation to my entire data cube all at once. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say get data, and instead of going and getting a different data type, I'm going to go down and create an entirely blank query. And the reason I'm doing that is the code I'm about to paste is going to take my existing data cube and manipulate it in certain ways. And the way we get to the mQuery editor is we click on advanced query, and you'll see the little syntax comes up. I'm just going to actually copy over this and paste in that really big line of code, and I'll say done. And we'll look at the code in just a second. But what the code does is it makes a little interface up front that says, give me a start date, give me an end date, and give me the different culture that you want to use. And I realized I have this wrong code. I updated this the other day because one of the other things they've added now is the holiday. And I'll make sure the version you get has the holiday code in it. Matter of fact, I'll take 2 seconds if I can find it because I think I was actually playing with it before the session started. Give me 1 second. If I can't find it in a second, I will, I think it's this one. Yep, this was our old logo and our old stuff. So let me go in and get the date. And I think this is the one that's got the right query. And I'll make sure, again, as I said, I'll make sure you get the latest and greatest version. There we go. And copy, copy, copy. And let's see, I could be wrong, and this may be exactly the same one we did. But I'm going to leave this, and I'm going to go back and cancel out of this. Let's close it. Let's do it one more time. Remember how we do it? We get data. We do a blank query. When it comes up, we use the advanced editor, and we're just going to paste this code in. I'm hoping this is the right one now. And it's the exact same. So, okay, I'll get you the one. The only difference, which is really cool, is there's a little box that says holidays. And I actually have a holiday table, which has every holiday, national holiday for the last like 200 years. And what it'll do is it'll map the holidays over your work days, and it'll mark off working days versus non-working days, et cetera. It's a really cool feature. It's not a big deal for this demo. So all I do is I put a start date. My start date is January 1 of 2010. Whoops, January 1 of 2010. And I'll click on this, make sure it comes in correct. And then I'll say this is going to be, I think my data goes through 12/31 of 2016 in this table. And again, make sure that looks good. It does. Culture is if you come from other nationalities, you want to use the Hebrew calendar, the Chinese calendar, whatever. We want to use English, and by default, that's the original, so I don't have to put anything in there. When I say evoke, watch what happens. It comes out with an evoke function, and it has taken every day from the date I said to start to the date I told it to stop, and it's calculated the year, the quarter, the month, the financial year, the financial month, financial quarter, on, day, week, month, chart, ISO dates, on, you name it. Everything you'd possibly need relating to date and time gets created automatically, and it's getting added into this particular database. So once I'm done, I'm going to say apply and close, and it's going to come in. This is why I changed it. Actually, I think it worked anyway. Let's see if it did. Nope, it didn't. Okay, not a problem. That's why we have the backup. Let's jump back to the backup. So I have the date table here. It's because I mixed up the query, and that's not a problem. But this is what it looks like. The date table comes in. Now, just because we created this date table, we have to hook it into our data. And so to do that, how do we do it? We go back to our table setup, the data setup, and we're going to go manage these relationships. And what we're going to do, I've already done it for this, but I'm going to take the date table and I'm going to tie it up by saying the date inside the date table, take the date table date, and I want you to tie it to the sales table and sales date. So I'm just mapping these two together. And once I do this, Boom, it builds the right relationship. I hit close. And now when I go back in here, let me take some of this data that I have. And you remember I had a chart here, and I'm going to open this up a little bigger so we can see it. Come on. Let me go to a different chart. That'll probably work better. Yeah, here's one. So here is Louisville sales, and I've got all the sales data. And notice that I use sales data as the axis. Well, instead of doing that, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to put the month name, for example. And now this was not a category. This is in my sales date table. And you can see it came in. Or what if I want to put fiscal year? Or what if I want to put, so this is fiscal year by month, and it's redesigning and showing a flow diagram. This is a new feature that they put in. Or anything else that I want, the quarter, the date, the year, the week ending, the week before, you name it, you could put all this in. To give you an idea of how all this works, when we teach a class, we'll do about 8 hours of deep diving on this. And what's fun about the class is I challenge the class all day long to find 20 plus nuggets or Easter eggs I buried in the data. Easter eggs are data points that basically are hidden, and you got to work hard to figure out what's causing the data to spike or drop or whatever. And so the classes, we play together as teams, and then we break out into smaller groups, and then we finally get down to an individual. And it's kind of like CSI. The classes love it. Our last one we did, we got just amazing evals. People really get into it, and they really have a lot of fun. And I think it's the fastest way to learn how to do high-end, high-speed analytics. And if you're all interested, please let Bob and I know. We'd be more than happy to set that up. And in some cases, Microsoft will even offer us funding to help pay for that, to get you up to speed and moving as quick as you can. But anyway, I digress. So you can put all this stuff together. Well, one of the classes I did was for 7-Eleven Corporation down here, Southland Corporation in Dallas. If you're familiar with 7-Eleven, their signature drink is the Slurpee, a little icy drink. And so we were in the class, we were playing around, and we said, what if we created a Slurpee metric? And the Slurpee metric said every Thursday, we're going to give a 15% discount on Slurpees. It's Slurpee Day. And what would that do to our sales? And so we were able to create a DAX expression that would look and see day of the week equals Thursday. And if it applied Thursday, it would offer a 10% or 15% discount or whatever we decided. And then it'd go back and instantly recalculate all the numbers. And we could see how adjusting that Slurpee formula would instantly give us data that we needed to on how all this stuff kind of came together. So I just want to point out, you can really go well far and beyond everything that we're doing here. One thing I want to show you, and I wrote these out, is there's a feature in here. I'm just going to double click. When you double click, this is part of the Pro Premium of Microsoft Power BI. Remember that Power BI is free, generally speaking. However, they have a Pro Premium, which has even more extensive capabilities. There's 4 different things that it does. It allows you to use disparate databases together as a single. So I can put a SQL Server and an Oracle and tie the 2 databases together into my data cube and make it look like one. It increases the transact speed, so I can get up to the second updates. Let's say I'm doing a stock ticker app, and I need to know up to the millisecond how that stuff is changing. The Pro and Premium allow you to do that. The other big feature that it does is it gives you this hook to your AI data. And what this is, I just double clicked on this, and I want to assure you there is nothing I've done to this database. I haven't tricked this out in any way. I didn't spend time teaching Power BI how my data works. It is looking at my data. It's using a natural language engine along with the AI stack and the ML stacks from Microsoft. Back in that PowerPoint slide I showed you, along with the data connectors, was the AI stuff. It's reaching in and it's analyzing my data, and it's truly understanding my data without me having to explain how the data relates to each other or works or anything else. Using natural language, it now has a conceptual idea of what my data is without me spending any time setting up anything. So I have done nothing to this data. I can go in here and just ask it any single question that I want to. So this feature is part of the Pro and Premium. It's like $9 extra per user per month. But here's the kicker: you don't have to outfit your entire organization with the Pro. You can get like 5 people or 10 people, or get your data analyst to have Pro copies, and then they can make reports using this feature and publish them, and everyone else can consume that data with just the free license. So it's not like you have to buy everybody. Yeah.
On the previous screen, you were showing a whole bunch of months, and a comment was the months don't seem to be organized sequentially. Is there any reason for that?
Yes, there is. So one of the features, a great question. And I tried to show this last month when we did this, and people said it was way over their heads. This was too advanced. So I actually took it out. But I'm glad you caught it. When you go in to look at your data and you use the features to analyze, you can pick any column. Let me go into my sales, for example. Or actually, let's go to that date table. That's a great way of doing it. When it comes in and I do month and year, it doesn't know that July 2010 should be listed before February 2013. It sees the F in February and tries to alphabetize it. And that's what screws that up. So there's a couple ways we get around that, but the biggest way to do it is this sort by column. And I could say, even though you're showing it by month and year, I want you to sort it by the date field. Now, there's a couple other tricks, and I do this in my class because you have to have unique values and you got to do other stuff. But you set this up one time with your table, and then every report that you make will actually be shown in date sequential order instead of alphabetic sequential order. Hopefully that made sense in a very short period of time. Let's go back real quick. So if that doesn't make sense, let me know. But like I said, we do that in our advanced class, or the next version 2. I'll take you through the whole thing and walk you through how to fix that. That is a very common problem that people in Power BI have. And so I finally just added it into my curriculum. I show them how to do it and how to manage it. But here's what we want to do. Now that I plug this in, so this is a Pro Premium I'm using. And by the way, you get free Pro Premium for like 90 days when you first load up your Power BI. So just sign up for it. Doesn't cost you anything. And what it allows you to do is it's already looked through and it's found some interesting statistical data that you can put in here. But I'm just going to grab these because I already got them. Notice in English, I want to go Boston. I want to know which current store had by sum of actual price listed by rep name. And so I'm going to copy that and paste it in. Of course, if I was a good typer, I could just type it in. And when I do this, boom, it automatically creates the graph for me. And what if I say by or as pie chart, right? And I can start typing as pie chart. I left off the E. You do have to spell, and automatically turned it into a pie chart. You can type anything you want to. So same thing, I'm just going to read off this. Count the number of men's athletic, and you'll notice it's, if I could type, ATHELIC, running shoes. And here it's even done a spell checker. It says athletic. What are you trying to say? And it should come up with the real word athletic. Sorry, didn't mean to click on that. But it'll do the spell checker, or as I said, I'm a horrible speller. I could just copy and paste. But you just type it in, it'll keep filling it out. And when you're done, boom, there's your answer. Done by region, by rep, count of sales per athletic shoe for 2014. And so it automatically filtered it. Now it's only showing me by your fiscal year 2014. So you literally can talk to this in close to plain English. Ask it anything you want to. Show me the top 10 sales reps by sales of women's red dress shoes with a 4-inch heel. And as fast as you can type that in, the answer is sitting right in front of you. And so we teach companies how to use this to ask questions of your data, find those statistical anomalies, and then go back and make these beautiful charts and dashboards and graphs that you'll then put out to your executives. And you can tell storylines, right? I can draw a little red graph on here and then have the next page go into detail. Why is this so low? Well, Eileen Baker took a sabbatical, and that's why. And so you build out these ongoing storylines, you publish them out for the execs, and by the time they flip through them, if they ever want to say, well, just show me Eileen Baker's numbers. And notice I click on Eileen Baker and everything just updated to show me it was in 2014 that she did a really bad job. And that's because she took the sabbatical and she didn't sell any of these different types of shoes. And so you can just keep driving down. Well, how did she do against Austin Gray? So I click on Austin Gray, and now I'm seeing side-by-side comparisons. He wasn't even an employee in 2013, 2012. He came on 2014. So he only had partial year, but in his full year, he was at 122, where Charlotte was at 170. So again, you build these, you publish them out, they go in, they click and change, and boom, they get it all good to go. All right, I am out of time. I thought for sure we would have extra time. Boy, was I a fool. Right. So, yeah, it never works that way. I want to go back. Remember that we're going to have this. I'm going to have Bob kind of close us out. And yep. Bob, I thought I had a sum slide, but obviously I'm using the wrong deck. So you want to just close us out and explain?
No, that's fine. Yep, and we've got a question or two we can get to here in a minute. I want to make sure that we honor our time. So as Mike mentioned, we're available to do customized workshops for your organization. As Mike mentioned, even the level 2 of this course can be specifically designed for your company. So if you have a team that you want to put into a workshop to learn some advanced stuff, we're happy to do that as part of our demonstration of expertise and consideration of being your partner long-term to help support Power BI and Power Platform solutions. So we want to thank everyone for attending today, and for those that are interested in a follow-up, as Mike mentioned, we can also approach Microsoft on your behalf. We can find your Microsoft rep if you don't know who that is, and work with them to see what type of funding. Microsoft very often will make funding available for those clients that want to adopt more Microsoft services as a result of a TechStar engagement. So this is not meant for every partner. It's for partners like TechStar that are very tight with Microsoft and driving adoption of their services. It's been very, very popular. So I'll put up the survey, and there's a question right at the end.
I see that question. Yep, I will grab that while you're posting up that survey. By the way, and I know this is us patting our own back, but Microsoft didn't invite you in to talk to their accounts unless you really know what you're talking about. And obviously, being an ex-Microsoft guy, they can trust me a little bit more, I think, because I've walked their shoes. But having done so many of these for Microsoft, I think that experience says a lot. So hopefully you'll call us up if you have any data products. And it's not just that. If you have to organize your data pools, you have to get your databases put together, you're acquiring a new company and you're trying to figure out how to merge their data, that's the kind of stuff we do. So I do see the question from David. He said, what's the advantage to using the date table when previously Power BI was giving splits by year, quarter, et cetera, automatically? It's night and day. You're definitely going to want a date table. And most of you that work for big companies, your companies probably already have a date table created. I was showing you building one from scratch because I wanted to show you M code. But if you work for Toyota or JCPenney or any of those big monstrous companies, I'm certain they already have date tables there. Just ask and they will provide it for you. But if not, you can build your own. The answer to your question, though, is what happens if you it's like the Slurpee example. What if you want to give a discount every other week, every other Thursday? What if you want to give a discount for months ending with have an R in them? I don't know. That's kind of silly, but you could. Or as I mentioned, what if your fiscal year starts in May, as many companies do? All your data is all going to be jacked up and off unless you use a date table. So date tables are by far and away the easiest thing to do. The beauty is once you set them up, they're set up forever. So you just don't have to worry about it. You put the date table in, and then from that moment on, you can dive as deep as you want to. And you saw, I showed you a couple of columns, but there's like 27 to 35 different columns in there. You can even make your own columns on particular dates that you want to track and information that you want to put. And then that just gets laid right over your data to give you an answer for anything that you might want. Okay, I see. Where's the survey? Bob has posted that. He also put up our webinar for Thursday. Your Power Platform, if you thought today was good, I think Power Platform is actually better. We always get the comments mind blown and people are freaking out because we show some really cool solutions. Again, it's Power BI is part of the Power Platform, but we actually build an OCR scanning PDF reader that pulls data out, takes the data, puts some business rules on it, shoots it around in Teams, distributes it via email, and then you respond back and you tell it if you want to approve or disapprove, and it does all this other crazy stuff. We do all of that without writing a single line of code anywhere. You want to check it out. It's really awesome. If you want to put some automation in your processes, that's the best way to do that. Are there any other questions that I missed? And I apologize. I know there was so much in here, and I'm sure you're going to say we want more, as everyone always does. We already gave you an hour and a half. Hopefully we can get you signed up for that second iteration. And as I mentioned, please give me just, I'm in the middle of moving my house. So as soon as I get that done, I will record that video, get it up on Udemy. I'll let you all know that it's out there, so that we'll be sure that you can get access to the second round of training if you want. Other questions? Am I missing anything, Bob?
No. Someone asked for the survey, so I reposted it.
Teacher says thank you. Amanda says thank you. You are so welcome. I appreciate you coming. I did see a lot of names for people coming back. I love it when you come back for more sessions. So don't worry. I'd rather talk to a full house anytime, any day. So hopefully we will see you all again soon on another TechStar webinar.
Yep,
thanks, everybody.
Please, consider the Power Platform next week. Or I'm sorry, this week on Thursday.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.